Some says that the kinds of quantitative research are experimental and descriptive. Others says descriptive, correlational, causal comparative, and experimental. They are all correct, but in this lesson, we will put all things in place. Good day, everyone! Welcome to another session of Learning in Practical Research 2. I am Ma'am Balbia, and today we will talk about the different kinds of quantitative research. The two broad classifications of quantitative research are experimental research and non-experimental research. Let us begin with experimental research. What are its characteristics? First and foremost, experimental research strictly adheres to the procedures of the scientific method. It involves manipulation of variables and utilization of treatment or intervention. Lastly, variables in experimental research are isolated, manipulated, and controlled to determine their effect to the other variable. There are several kinds of experimental research, but in this particular lesson, we will cover only the most commonly used kinds. The first of the three is the true experimental design. It is the most accurate type of experimental research. In this type, the participants are randomly assigned to groups. The quasi-experimental design is almost similar to true experimental design, except that the participants in this type are not randomly assigned to groups. The simplest form of experimental research is the pre-experimental design. At this point, we will go to the second classification, which is the non-experimental quantitative research. What are the characteristics of non-experimental quantitative research? First, there is no treatment or intervention involved in non-experimental research. Second, it is capable of establishing cause-effect relationship. Finally, non-experimental research documents the characteristics of a phenomenon. There are also several kinds of non-experimental research, but again, we will only discuss the most common. The first one is descriptive. Descriptive research involves either identifying the characteristics of an observed phenomenon or exploring possible correlations among variables. The next is comparative. It is used to compare and contrast samples in relation to certain designated variables that occur in normal conditions. The third is correlational. Correlational studies examines the degree of relationship between variables. The last one is evaluative. It involves making a judgment of worth or value. Before we end this session, let us summarize everything we discussed today. The kinds of quantitative research. There are two broad classifications: experimental and non-experimental research. Under experimental research, we have true experimental, quasi-experimental, and pre-experimental. In non-experimental research, we discuss four: descriptive, comparative, correlational, and evaluative. That's all for today. See you next time. God bless everyone.